Welcome back to part 2 of our Lionel Messi career retrospective. If you watched part 1, you saw Messi's journey from Newell's Old Boys to his incredible Barcelona peak, and eventually the difficult final years that brought his time at the club to an end. Now we're picking up from there, as Messi leaves Barcelona and enters the next major chapters of his career, from Paris Saint-Germain to Inter Miami, before looking at his complicated international journey and the World Cup that ultimately completed his legacy. Before we get into it, make sure to like the video, subscribe to B360 Plus TV, and let us know in the comments what you think about Messi's career so far. Paris Saint-Germain looked like the perfect destination on paper. Messi would reunite with Neymar, the teammate with whom he had formed one of football's most devastating attacking partnerships, while also playing alongside Kylian Mbappé, who was rapidly becoming one of the best players in the world. On paper, it was almost unfair. In practice, it was surprisingly complicated. Messi's first season in Paris wasn't terrible, but for Messi, it was underwhelming. For Messi, it was evidence that something had changed. He was no longer at the center of a system built specifically around him. PSG had several superstars, but they didn't necessarily have a team built around making Messi as effective as possible. The Champions League was again where the frustration became most obvious. PSG had enormous individual talent, but struggled to turn that talent into consistent European dominance, and Messi's time in France increasingly felt like an uncomfortable experiment rather than the beginning of another legendary chapter. His second season was statistically stronger, and he helped PSG win another league title, but the Champions League disappointment remained. Then, near the end of his time in Paris, Messi was suspended by the club after traveling to Saudi Arabia without authorization. The relationship had clearly deteriorated. And by the summer of 2023, Messi was leaving again. This time, the decision was particularly interesting because he had multiple options. Saudi Arabia could offer enormous financial compensation. Barcelona wanted him back. Inter Miami offered something completely different. Instead of trying to prove himself again in European football, Messi chose an environment where the pressure was lower and where he could potentially enjoy the final stages of his career. He chose Miami, and the impact was immediate. Messi helped transform Inter Miami from a relatively modest MLS club into one of the most globally recognized teams in American football. His arrival brought enormous attention, sold-out stadiums, international broadcasts, and a level of global interest that MLS had rarely experienced. He also immediately demonstrated that his technical ability had not disappeared. The difference was the context. Messi was no longer expected to dominate Real Madrid, Manchester City, or Bayern Munich. He was playing in a league where the physical and tactical demands were different, and he was surrounded by former Barcelona teammates who understood exactly how to play with him. That doesn't diminish what he accomplished in Miami, but it does mean that late career MLS dominance should not be placed on exactly the same level as dominating the Champions League during his Barcelona prime. The competition was different. The pressure was different. The stage was different. And Messi's role was different. Still, there was something refreshing about watching him there. After years of pressure, controversy, and expectations, Messi looked like someone who was simply enjoying football again. If Barcelona was the greatest chapter of Messi's career, Argentina was easily the most complicated. For years, Messi's international career was used as the primary argument against him. The logic was simple. If he was really the greatest player in the world, why couldn't he win with Argentina? And for a long time, There was no easy answer. Argentina reached the 2014 World Cup final, only to lose to Germany. They reached the Copa América final in 2015 and lost on penalties. Then they reached another Copa América final in 2016 and lost again on penalties. 3 consecutive major tournament finals. 3 disappointments. In 2016, the pressure became so intense that Messi announced his retirement from international football. He eventually returned, but the criticism didn't disappear. The problem was that Messi wasn't merely being compared to other players. He was being compared to Diego Maradona. Argentina wanted Messi to become the next national footballing icon, and every tournament became another opportunity to ask whether he could carry the country the way Maradona had done. For years, the answer seemed to be no. Then, everything changed. In 2021, Argentina finally won the Copa América. Messi played a major role throughout the tournament and finally won his first major international trophy with the senior national team. That victory didn't completely silence the critics, but it removed one of the biggest weaknesses in his legacy. Then came Qatar. The 2022 World Cup began badly. Argentina lost to Saudi Arabia in their opening match, creating the possibility of another early international disappointment. Instead, the team recovered. Messi scored. Messi created. Messi led. Argentina kept progressing, and eventually they reached the final against France. What followed was arguably the greatest World Cup final ever played. Messi scored twice. Argentina took control. France came back. Kylian Mbappe produced one of the greatest individual performances in a World Cup final. The game went to extra time, and then penalties. Argentina won. Messi finally lifted the World Cup. And in doing so, he removed the last major argument people had used to question whether his career was complete. But even that doesn't mean the earlier criticism was completely wrong. Messi's international career was inconsistent for a long time. There were finals he failed to win. There were tournaments where Argentina underperformed. There were moments when Messi himself didn't dominate as expected. The difference is that unlike many players, Messi eventually got another opportunity to rewrite the story. And he took it. The 2021 Copa América and 2022 World Cup transformed his international legacy from complicated to historic. So where does that leave Lionel Messi? He wasn't perfect. He had disappointing Champions League exits, struggled at times as Barcelona declined, spent an underwhelming period at PSG, and needed years before finally winning a major international trophy. But the criticism doesn't erase the bigger picture. Messi still produced an extraordinary level of football for almost 2 decades, won virtually every major trophy available to him, and eventually completed his international career by winning the World Cup. His career wasn't flawless, and it wasn't always simple, but the combination of his peak, longevity, statistics, and achievements makes it almost impossible to deny his place among football's greatest ever. The Barcelona years made him a phenomenon, the difficult years made him human, and the World Cup gave his story the ending it had been missing. Not perfect, but almost impossible to replicate. If you enjoyed this retrospective, make sure to like the video and subscribe to B360 Plus TV for more football stories, debates, player breakdowns, and deep dives. And when you're done here, check out some of the other videos on B360 Plus TV. See ya.